We're staring down new macroeconomic conditions that are forcing companies to rethink their business top to bottom at this point. What advice do you guys have for marketers who may be thinking about what they need to, how these challenging times and these conditions are forcing them to think differently?
Right now, markets are starting to contract. And really for the last 4 years, markets have expanded tremendously. And so when markets are expanding, there's a lot of room for R&D. There's a lot of room for different investments, different ideas to try new things. As things start to contract, you really have to ruthlessly prioritize. So now is a great time for marketers to figure out, what did you buy over the last 4 years? And what's really necessary and what might be actually holding you back? Because the hope and promise of new innovation, new technology is going to help you, but sometimes it can actually hold you back. So it's a great time to take a break, take a pause, look what the marketing stack looks like. What are the essential pieces and how could you invest more in that area and potentially say goodbye or sunset to some technology that's not really serving the needs of the marketer right now. And I would also extend that ruthless prioritization exercise to budget. What dollar is really advancing your pipeline, advancing opportunities, delivering the pipeline that sales needs, and maybe what dollar can wait until things turn around and more access to capital exists.
Yeah. Henry?
Yeah, I think Jeremy said it really well. I would say focus is obviously really important, staying focused on the things that are driving the highest returns in your business. For us, we think about what dollar is turning most quickly, most effectively into a dollar of revenue for us. And so from a marketing perspective, that means more on digital, more on SDR-led outreach, and probably less on experimental marketing, less on brand marketing, and focusing the dollars and the resources on areas that are driving return in your business. I think that's what you do.
And the big common mistake, especially at times of contraction, is not spending enough money to build pipeline. Because if marketing ultimately is not building pipeline, ultimately it'll catch up to the business a quarter or two where sales is sitting around saying, gosh, where's all the pipeline? And then revenue takes a big hit, and then board members get grumpy, or public market investors get grumpy. So it's actually really critical to continue to spend, but spend wisely in areas of big impact in marketing.
Yeah.
So the last 24 months have proven to be incredibly challenging times for B2B marketers. This potential recession aside, what do you think or what do you see that separates successful marketing teams right now from those that are struggling?
The teams that are focused on really optimizing both the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. And when I think about that, I think, okay, look at the top of the funnel. What are we doing to either drive more leads at the top of the funnel or convert more leads that show up on our website or who are interested in our products and services? And at the bottom of the funnel, what am I doing across my sales teams to make sure that when an opportunity is initiated, that those are converting at the highest rates possible? How am I investing in coaching? How am I investing in the product to answer the questions of the buyers? How am I making sure that I'm optimizing that funnel fully? And then I pay most attention at the top and then at the bottom.
Yeah, I think now is a great time, if sales and marketing isn't really well aligned, to figure out a way to better align leaderships in a common vernacular across sales and marketing. What is an SQL? How do we define that? Because oftentimes marketing will have a different definition than sales, and what's an MQL, et cetera. So, I think it's time for leaders in sales, leaders in marketing to really get into that room, hopefully in person if possible, and really understand what is the strategy and how can both functions work best together to serve the needs of the business.
Yeah, I would agree. You have to think about sales and marketing as one consistent motion across that top of the funnel all the way through to revenue. CMOs just cannot afford anymore to be looking only at one part of it, right? They have to be in lockstep with their sales counterparts. And most of that has happened over the last couple of years. Certainly the move to digital was pushing us there anyway, pre-pandemic, but now even more so, I think, as we come out of it. So
I think one of the things that I thought about was what's a cheat code that I think about for go-to-market teams? And I think about it in the top of the funnel. I think, look, there are probably 5 data points that can drive cheat codes for go-to-market teams. The first one is your ICP and your total addressable market. Who are my ideal customers that I should be focused on? And then relentlessly focus on them. And it's not everybody, right? It's for companies, it might be SMBs, it might be mid-market companies, it might be companies that use a specific technology or are growing a specific rate or who have gotten funding or who have a chief customer experience officer, whatever that might be. Get really granular about what that ideal customer profile looks like and then focus on them. That gives you the universe of companies, but then when am I actually going to go talk to those companies? And so we think about that sort of hierarchically. First, who are the companies who visited my website? And do I have a way to de-anonymize the companies that have been on my website? And can I run a motion behind those companies? Clearly, if I came to your website, that kind of shows the most interest in your products and services. Unfortunately, only 1 or 2 out of 100 people ever fill out that form on your website, and the rest just disappear into the ether. And so having a solution that helps you identify those people, marry them to the ideal buyers at that company, and run a motion behind them, I think is really important and valuable. The second is we leverage B2B intent data. And so tell me the companies who didn't come to my website, but are actually out there on the web researching my competitors, researching products and services like mine, and let me go run a motion behind them. And then we think about companies that are actually spending money on projects and initiatives or products and services like ours, or companies that just hired a new CMO if I sell a marketing solution, or hired a new CIO or VP of IT. Can I run a motion based on those signals and insights that come in that way? And so we think about these key data points. And then the last one is engagement. What companies are engaging with my content? What companies are engaging with my emails or engaging with our marketing efforts? And then using all of that data to go out and proactively engage with those companies, I think is a quick way to make sure you're focusing your resources on exactly the right people at exactly the right time.
Yeah. Jeremy, how do you think about activation and the importance of it in this digital world today?
Yeah, I thought that was really well said. I think one of the reasons that ZoomInfo and Integrate share so many customers is because among many other things, ZoomInfo does what Henry just described. And it's super critical now to know what accounts are actually in market. And we need to know in a dynamic sense, who's coming to the website, what account lists we're going after, and be able to run a playbook against that. And our customers are running that playbook on Integrate. So they're taking that account list dynamically, feeding it into the multiple channels in which they're running marketing, and then activating campaigns really quickly so that we can engage those buyers at those prospects, at those accounts who are engaging either on our website or maybe in market with other companies that we want to get in front of. And so that's where the yin and the yang work really well with leveraging a company like ZoomInfo to understand who is in market and leveraging and Integrate to be able to run those playbooks in an omni-channel setting.
Yeah. How do you think about that? I'll stay on you, Jeremy, from a buying experience perspective and all of those different channels as possibilities.
I mean, our buyers are changing every day. I mean, the pandemic certainly changed our buyers, but they're also getting younger. And why does that matter? Well, younger buyers are digital native, they're cell phone native, they're internet native. A lot of them are accustomed to pushing a button and a car shows up at their house. They going to the grocery store is beneath them. They order groceries, and so that's the new buyer. And when you look at the data, more and more B2B buyers don't want to engage with another human being in the buying decision. They want everything at their fingertips, just like they're used to. And so what does that mean for marketers now? It means we need to be able to meet our buyers wherever they exist, not where we want them to exist. And so creating a connected cross-channel motion playbook fed by the right intelligence of what accounts to go after is critical now, but it's going to become more and more critical in the future as the buyer dynamic changes.
Yeah, for sure. I think you want to engage, because they're not to the point around kind of 99 or 98 out of 100 people who visit your website not filling out a form. That's still your buyer, and they're floating around the digital world.
Yeah. They're not coming there by chance and circumstance,
totally.
right?
So you have to activate them. You have to activate against them because you want to meet them where they are, wherever they might be. And so getting these insights and then driving activation around it, I think is really important, whether or not they raise their hand in that moment. They're active buyers, and you want to be in front of them and repeating your message.
You want to be in front of them, whether it's at a trade show floor, whether it's through digital engagement, whether it's on LinkedIn or another social platform like Facebook, and understanding how they want to interact and understanding how each account wants to interact in the buying process. And so feeding intelligence from field marketing events to website analytics to display to all of these various channels in which we're engaging our prospects is critical.
So the way that I love the talk you guys are, the synergy that we're talking about here, it's changed the way go-to-market teams have also started to work together, right? How do you think about successful go-to-market teams and how they're working in service of that buyer? Maybe Henry, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the first thing I think about is the way we leverage conversation intelligence. And so what conversation intelligence does for us is it goes out and it records and analyzes and transcribes every digital customer experience we have. Email, chat, phone, demo, web meeting. And so what that allows us to be able to do is in every instance hear the voice of the customer. And we leverage this in the sales motion to be able to coach our sales reps so that they're answering the questions of our buyers better, so that they're well educated on the most commonly asked questions and they can guide and consult in the sales practice. We use it on the product side. Our product team is required to listen to a certain amount of customer calls for each of their platforms every week and then write a synopsis on what they learned from those customer experiences, and that drives our roadmap. And so you get all of this intelligence coming directly from the customer that now in a digital world you can actually harness, and then you can make changes in your business because of it. And so I think in the last, decade, one of the most impactful ways or most impactful tools we've used to really drive closer interaction with our customers is conversation intelligence, and we leverage it all across our business.
Think about that. It's such an amazing opportunity to really get that voice of the customer throughout the entirety of your organization, like your product teams. Actually sitting down and hearing from the customer and not feeling like the customer not feeling like they're in a sales environment or even giving product input. It's just their natural desire of what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. When you're asking people to spend money on something, they become really honest with you.
That's true.
And that's when you want to be listening.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think the other part of it is just embracing the mentality that renewal starts at onboarding.
Absolutely.
Really understanding the customer's need. Why do they buy your solution in the beginning? Making sure that onboarding is very, very successful, but staying really closely tied to that account and all the conversations that are happening inside that account, and not just waiting until a quarter upon renewal to say, hey, how's the health of that account we sold 3 quarters ago? I think that really helps stay close to the customer and stay customer-centric.
By the way, if you're in SaaS, it's pretty simple. Customers who adopt and use your product renew. Customers that don't.
Absolutely.
And there's all this data science and machine learning that you can do to understand exactly what it is that they might do. Do they use it or do they not use it? And where does that all start? It starts at onboarding. Do we onboard them well? Do they adopt right away? Do we make sure that everybody understands the product, understands the service, knows how to use it? If you miss that window, it's really difficult.
Or does our champion leave and go somewhere else, and then a new onboarding motion needs to happen, even if it's in the middle of an account?
Yeah, and a new sales motion has to happen too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you both are describing a sense of customer centricity that exists at both ZoomInfo and at Integrate. I think both companies are very focused on what makes your happy, successful, and renewable customers. Very important, especially in this market. But how do you think, I think Jeremy, you mentioned that this starts at, it starts at onboarding. Renewal starts at onboarding. I would even argue that many CMOs today are becoming chief customer officers, and the customer lifecycle is becoming more and more important. How do you think about demand teams and marketing teams in general really succeeding to build that customer focus and customer centricity right from the beginning?
I think customer marketing is so critical right now, because if you're not marketing to your own customer, you know all your competitors are, right? And what messaging are they sending? And it's a competitive world, and it's getting more competitive as markets contract. So more companies are fighting for dollars. And so, I think the old way of thinking about nurture, where you only nurture prospects, is probably beyond us. And the idea that you're always nurturing your prospects, but also your customers in a sense. And it's the great news for marketers is the ability to stay in front of a customer through a multi-channel environment is easier today than it's ever been before. So does the messaging change? Sure. Does the content change? Absolutely. Does it need to be a multiple prong approach where it's CS, it's sales, and it's marketing working together to nurture the customer? I think yes. And I think that feels like the right approach to make sure that your company is staying in front of the customer from all angles and doing what's best for ultimately your end user.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a couple examples that I thought of when we think about customer centricity. I think the first is, if you have an online product, it means you have all sorts of information about what your users and your customers are doing on the platform. And you should be harnessing that. So one thing that we do, let's say we have a customer who's in our platform and they keep looking up European companies, but they don't have access to our global data asset. Well, that's a great opportunity for us to introduce them to the global data asset. We don't want them to just have continuous bad experiences with the product because of some, misalignment from a product chosen perspective. And so leveraging data that comes from your product to do real-time reach out that's really specific and one-to-one to your customers, I think is really important. Another one is we think a lot about sales plays. And how you make one-to-one sales plays that run against either your customer base or your prospect base. And what's really interesting is if you go out and you have a conversation with your best salespeople and you say, hey, tell me a motion that you run where if you had perfect data, you would just continuously do it over and over and over again. What you end up finding is really interesting motions that your best salespeople are running, but it really requires them to pull a little bit of data from here and visit this website and then go there and pull it all together into some kind of sales prospecting email. We did this with Comparably. Comparably is a company that we acquired a couple months ago, and one of the things that Comparably does is it helps you talk about the culture of your business on the web. And so we went out to the best salesperson at Comparably and we said, tell us the best thing, the best motion you could run where if you had unlimited time, you would just do it over and over and over again. And she said, well, I go look at the earnings call transcripts of public companies and I see when their CEO talks about employee culture. And if he or she talks about employee culture, I take that snippet, I put it in an email, I email the head of HR, I CC the CEO, and I say, hey, you guys clearly care a lot about culture. Help Comparably put that culture and that focus out on the web so that candidates can see that and have a better feel for who you are. That, when she ran that, it ran perfectly. But now you go, okay, well, how do I scale that? How do I make that same one-to-one feel apply across thousands of companies? And usually that's where the analysis stops. People go, okay, that's a really cute way that you're doing that. I'm glad it's working. But we can't really do that across thousands and thousands of companies. But it turns out with the tools that you have at your fingertips today, you can. So we went out, we read in an automated way, read thousands of public company transcripts, pulled out every time a CEO talked about company culture, aligned an email and an outbound motion around that, and every person who got that email got a really customized experience with us. The feeling that somebody went out, read your transcript, pulled out the key moment about culture, integrated that into an outbound motion is really powerful. And I think we do too much of like, hi, John, I see that you're in industry. It just doesn't really work anymore. And so we have to be a little bit more creative with the way that we engage our prospects and think about how you take one-to-one motions and then do them at scale.
Yeah. You described perfectly one of the things that I try and get through our SDR teams, which is become a student of your customer's business, right?
Totally.
That's exactly what you've just described. And that relevancy is something we were talking about earlier. It's that B2C feeling, right?
Yep.
You know me, you understand my challenges, you understand my company, you've taken the time to do that. And it's so rare. I mean, to be able to do it at scale is even better, but it's so rare. And it's just a requirement, I think, of our B2B marketing and sales play motions now.
It's just not that hard either, right?
Right.
If it's a public company and you didn't take the time to look at their last earnings call, it's just sales malfeasance.
That's right.
And if you aren't going to their careers page and reading about the jobs that they're hiring for and having an understanding of what they're requiring, that's just an easy thing to do, and you should show up educated to each one of those customers.
Well, and I think you can even stretch that to the entire selling process. I mean, we used to be in corporate visits, right? 4-hour, 5-hour, all-day corporate visits where we would parade in a bunch of executives to talk specifically about how products work for X company. you need to be able to give that content now, you know, and provide that experience now for the buyer in a digital world. We're not pulling people into office parks anymore.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. How do you think about other ways you might think about content or experiences for the B2B buyer across different channels today?
Well, the pandemic threw an interesting challenge into the mix, right? Because pre-pandemic, when you look at marketing spend, most of the budget, the enterprise, was spent on physical events. And physical events had a huge relevancy in building pipeline and getting to know your customers and being in person. And so that shifted almost exclusively to digital, which gave some companies some tailwinds and introduced some headwinds to other companies who were more physical in nature. But I think it's pretty remarkable how well marketers adapted to that change pretty quickly. When you look at earnings through the pandemic, I mean, big companies, tech companies performed exceptionally well. Now, today, as that pendulum swings back, there's more challenges in the macroeconomic economy. But as events come back, and as marketers learn that you can close deals, you can build pipeline on a Zoom call, not flying all over the country, introduces this new dynamic. Well, how do you fit in, and where does events and physical activity play a role in marketing? And we have a unique seat at the table owning some event tech. And what we're starting to see is events actually come back, and people start to gather, and people actually enjoy being in front of people again. And it turns out we're social animals. And so even introverted people are, interacting in a personalized way in person. So I think that's going to play a huge role in the future of marketing, being digital, but also the interplay of big physical events.
Yeah, for sure.
I think inevitably over the last 2 years, the companies that took on digital technologies and digital go-to-market motions, they're not going to get rid of those and then trade them for all what they were doing pre-pandemic.
Agreed.
They're forced to figure out how to go to market using those tools. And so they were committed to it. They were focused on it. For a lot of these companies, if they try to do that in the pre-pandemic world, it just wouldn't have worked. Because they're like, if it works, great. If not, I still got these 4 events that I go to every year that drive all the lead gen.
Right.
But instead, they were forced to figure out how to make digital go-to-market work. And once that works, it's an efficient return on your investment. You don't shut it off.
No.
But now you have an opportunity to augment it with in-person events. And we think that's a huge advantage. I've gone to a number of events in 2022, and there is a new energy to these events. People want to learn. They want to be in front of people. And so just incorporating that back into your sales motion, I think, is really valuable, but it doesn't get rid of the digital side that we invested in.
So let's flip the subject just a little bit and talk. We've got an audience of CMOs. Let's talk a little bit about what's top of mind for CEOs and CMOs today. What are they attacking together, whether it's this market or, as we've had ups and downs, and we will continue to, obviously, to see that. I also think it's an interesting time for CMOs because over the last 2 years, as sales hasn't been able to be in person with customers, the marketing person or the marketing team has really been able to do that. And I think earned or re-earned that seat at the table that, the board members now are saying, you help us think about what are the things we need to cut and what are the things we need to keep as we go into this change in the market. So what's top of mind for you guys as you talk to either your own CMOs or other customer CMOs that are out there?
Henry, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. I think we think a lot about efficiency today. What are the most efficient ways that we can be using our marketing dollars in this market? So we talk a lot about that, and I think at the board level, at the CEO level, efficiency and use of resources is always a topic. It's especially a topic today, and so really understanding which channels perform the best and whether there's opportunity to add more dollars to those channels and more away from sort of experimental channels. I think that's the big talk track. In our business, one of the things we hear a lot about we talk a lot about is how you're moving sort of B2C digital experiences are getting closer to B2B digital experiences. And by closer, I mean, relatively speaking, it's still a long runway before B2B is anywhere near as sophisticated as B2C is when it comes to sort of digital display advertising and social advertising. And so we talk a lot about that. And then I think the third one we talk about is data privacy, and how do you make sure that the vendors that you partner with take data privacy seriously and have made a real investment behind data privacy, because that's a trend that's going to keep going, and we want to make sure that we're partnering with the best organizations who take that really seriously.
I think on the mind of most CEOs is ultimately what drives value in these economic environments. It used to be grow at all costs, and that drove huge valuations. And now the pendulum's swinging back towards unit economics. Like, how are you growing, and are you growing efficiently? And for every dollar of spend, are you getting a dollar of new ARR? That's kind of the benchmark. And if not, if you're below that and you're an early stage company, your ability to get funding might not be there. If you're spending $2 to gain $1 of new ARR, you might be out of alignment, and you need to fix that. So why does that matter to CMOs? Well, it all trickles down, right? And so I think all organizations are trying to be smarter, and to Henry's point, more efficient with everything that they're doing, from the capital they're investing across product and technology to the capital they're investing in marketing. And as you know, Deb, we're on a passionate pursuit to be able to efficiently put our content, our messaging, our point of view in all the channels where our buyers might be.
That's right.
And doing that used to be really expensive, because you'd have to hire more and more people to manage each additional channel and each additional partner. So we've been on this passionate pursuit to build and also to partner with technology companies who could make that easier and more efficient for us to do that.
Well, that wraps it up for us today. I appreciate y'all spending time with me. Thank you both for your time, your insight, your conversation, and have a good day.
Thank you for leading it.
Yeah, much appreciated.